Some stories are so ordinary in their beginnings, you don't notice the horror until it's already inside your home. This one is based on true events: a simple bunk bed, a quiet family home, and something in the dark that refused to stay buried. This is the Tallman Haunting. I never believed in curses, or hauntings, or the sort of stories whispered late at night around campfires. I believed in hard work, full stomachs, and the comfort of your own home, especially after the kids are asleep and the world grows quiet. Back then, it was just me, my wife Debbie, and our 3 children in a modest 2-story home on the outskirts of Horrifying, Wisconsin. I worked maintenance at the mill. Debbie handled the kids and church obligations, and we kept things simple. No complaints, no drama. Just life. Until that damn bunk bed came into the house. It was a Saturday yard sale. We were driving back from visiting my sister when we passed a place just off County Road. The sign said, "Estate Sale." And the front yard was littered with old tools, dressers, and furniture that looked half swallowed by time. I wasn't planning to stop, but Debbie wanted to look. I found it near the back of the property, leaning against a shed wall, dusty but intact. A sturdy pine bunk bed, carved spindles on the rails, still solid despite the rusted bolts. The guy running the sale, a pale man with nicotine fingers and dead eyes, said it belonged to his niece and nephew. He sold it to me for $20. Threw in a toy chest for free, said we'd be doing him a favor. If only I'd known. We got it home that afternoon. I reassembled the frame in the boys' room upstairs, wiping it down with a rag soaked in pine sol. It smelled of dust and something older, like old barns and rain rot. But I chalked it up to age. That night, the kids climbed in, excited for their new setup. Timmy, the youngest, claimed the bottom. Lucas took the top. I remember kissing them goodnight and switching off the lamp. Nothing unusual, no sign of what was coming. 3 nights later, Timmy wet the bed. He hadn't done that in over a year. I chalked it up to nerves, maybe the excitement of the new bed or something he ate. But when it happened again the next night, and again after that, we started to worry. He said he didn't remember dreaming anything, but when I pressed him gently, he finally mumbled, "The whispering keeps waking me up." "What whispering?" I asked. He pointed at the floor. "From the vent, from the basement." We didn't have any vent connected to the basement in that room. Just an old heat duct, sealed years ago. I checked anyway. Found nothing but dust and spider webs. Debbie said I was overthinking it. But that night, after putting the kids to bed, I sat alone in the dark hallway outside their door, listening. Around 2 a.m., I heard it. Not loud, just the faintest sound, like someone muttering in a deep voice, words I couldn't quite make out. I followed the sound down the stairs, my pulse racing, and stood at the basement door. It stopped. I opened it slowly, flicked on the light. The bulb buzzed and flickered. I crept down one creaking step after another, holding my breath. The laundry room was still, the air cool and dry, but something felt off, like the air had weight. In the far corner of the basement, behind some stacked boxes, I found the toy chest we'd brought home with the bed. I hadn't opened it since unloading it from the truck. The latch was unhooked. I opened it slowly. Inside were 2 things: a small wooden cross snapped in half and a child's drawing. The drawing was of a stick figure standing in front of a bed. The figure had red scribbles over its eyes and what looked like a long, black cloak hanging from its shoulders. I went back upstairs, tucked the paper in the garage, and told myself it meant nothing. But the next morning, Timmy refused to go into his room. He pointed at the bed and said, "The man doesn't like when we move at night." We kept the kids out of the room the next day. Debbie wanted to throw the bed out right then and there, but I told her we needed to be rational. Sure, Timmy had a nightmare, or several, but it didn't mean the furniture was haunted. Maybe the chest had something to do with it. Maybe it was just an old, creepy coincidence. So I moved the chest into the garage, covered it with a tarp, and told myself that would be the end of it. That night, we let the boys sleep in our room, and the house was quieter. Too quiet. The kind of silence that makes you lean forward to see if the world's still breathing. At around 3 a.m., I heard the humming. It was coming from the boys' room. I crept down the hallway, every board groaning under my weight. The door was cracked open, and beyond it, moonlight spilled across the wooden floor. The bunk bed sat empty, shadows clinging to its frame like cobwebs. But from somewhere inside that room, the humming continued. A slow, melodic tune. A girl's voice. But there were no girls in this house. I stepped inside and the air dropped 20 degrees. My breath fogged. The walls felt tighter, the ceiling lower. I reached for the lamp and turned it on. The voice stopped. I searched the room, top to bottom. Nothing under the bed. Nothing in the closet. Just that smell again. Musty wood, old rain. I looked out the window, half expecting someone to be standing in the yard. But the yard was empty. The next day, Debbie called in Pastor Rame from our church. A good man. Calm. Practical. He didn't laugh when we told him about the voice. He didn't roll his eyes when I showed him the drawing from the chest. He just asked to see the room. I walked him upstairs. As soon as he stepped inside, he winced and rubbed the back of his neck. "You feel that?" he asked. "Feel what?" "Pressure, like being watched." He placed his hand on the top bunk, closed his eyes and whispered something under his breath. Then he stepped back and nodded slowly. "I'd like to bless the house." We agreed. He returned that evening with a small satchel of oil and a worn leather Bible. Debbie made tea. I tried to hide the fact that my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The blessing started in the boy's room. He touched the headboard with oil and began his prayer, voice low and steady. The temperature dropped again, the lights flickered. And then, just as he was finishing, every door in the hallway slammed shut at once. All of them. We jumped. Pastor Rem turned pale. He looked at us and said, "Finish packing." Tonight. We didn't sleep that night. We moved the kids into the living room, far from the stairs, far from that cursed bed. I sat up with a bat in my lap and a cup of cold coffee sweating in my hands. At 4:12 a.m., the hallway light turned on by itself. Then the radio in the kitchen started to blare static. I ran to shut it off, yanked the cord out of the wall. From behind me, I heard something skitter across the ceiling, fast, like claws. I looked up and saw nothing. But I swear to you, I felt the ceiling dip. Something was crawling up there. The next morning, I called in an electrician. Told him I thought there might be animals in the walls. Faulty wiring. Something. Anything I could understand. He checked every inch of the attic, the panels, the crawl spaces. He found nothing. But when I helped him carry his toolbox back to the truck, he stopped in the doorway, staring at the stairwell. "What is it?" I asked. He hesitated. "You got a girl living here too." I saw one peek around the banister upstairs, long dark hair, real fast. Thought she was shy or something. "We don't have a daughter. We never have." I'll admit, I started to lose sleep. Not the kind where you toss and turn. No. This was the kind where you sit in the kitchen at 2 a.m. with your palms flat on the table, eyes fixed on the hallway, waiting for something to move. We were still in the house, but we no longer lived in it. We existed in it. like animals in a den waiting for the next tremor in the dark. And always it came from the direction of that damn bed. We tried moving the boys back into their room during the day, just for a few hours. Maybe ease the tension, make it feel normal again. But the moment we opened the door, Timmy burst into tears and clung to his mother. "He watches from the ceiling now," he said. "That stopped us cold." That afternoon, I tried dismantling the bunk bed. I figured if it was just the bed, maybe separating the pieces would help. I unbolted the top frame, moved it to the garage, and stored the headboard against the wall. The bottom bunk stayed in the room. That night, Lucas, the older one, slept in the living room. Timmy curled up in our bed again. I sat up, flipping through TV channels without watching anything, just trying to stay awake. At 2:37 a.m., I heard a thud from the garage, then a dragging noise. I crept out, grabbed the flashlight, and moved toward the back door. The garage was pitch black. The security light above the side entrance was off. Burned out, maybe. I opened the door, slowly, and swept the beam across the concrete. The headboard was in the middle of the garage floor, standing upright. I hadn't left it there. Worse, there were 3 long scratches carved into it. Deep grooves. Fresh. That same night, Lucas came into the room around 5 a.m., pale and shaking. He wouldn't talk until he had both arms wrapped around my neck like a drowning man. When he finally whispered into my ear, it nearly stopped my heart. He was sitting on the top bunk. I pulled him back. Who? The man. His head was too tall. He had red eyes. He didn't blink. We packed our things that morning and drove straight to my sister's house 2 towns over. I told Debbie we'd stay a night or 2, let the house settle. But deep down, I knew we weren't going back. Not with the boys. Still, something pulled me back the next day. I needed to grab a few more things. Birth certificates, work documents, tools. I told Debbie I'd be in and out. 10 minutes. I left just after noon. The house felt dead. Not quiet, dead. Like walking into a long sealed crypt. Every shadow felt wrong. The floor creaked beneath my boots in places it never had before. When I stepped into the boys' room, the door closed behind me. No draft, no wind. It closed slow, deliberate. I turned and reached for the knob. It wouldn't budge. From behind me, something whispered, "Get back in bed." I turned around. The mattress on the lower bunk rose slowly as if someone was beneath it, pressing upward, breathing. Then came the sound, fabric stretching, wood creaking, and something shifting underneath. I ran, kicked the door hard enough to crack the frame. When it opened, I bolted down the stairs and out to the truck. But I didn't go to Debbie's sister's place. I went to the church. I begged Pastor Rem to return, this time with help. He brought 2 others, men from another parish, both experienced with what they called difficult homes. They carried more than oil this time. They brought salt, incense, and candles. They didn't smile, didn't shake hands, and none of them would go near the bed. The youngest priest said something I'll never forget. He stood at the doorway, eyes fixed on the bunk frame, and said, "This is not a haunting. This is an invitation that was answered." Then he turned to me. "You need to destroy it. But know this, it may not let you." The priests left just before sunset. They blessed what they could, prayed over every doorway, and left behind a pouch of salt and some scribbled scripture for protection. But none of it felt like enough. Debbie wanted to call a demolition crew. I wanted to take a sledgehammer to the whole room. But neither of us had the guts to stay long enough to make that happen. We returned to the house the following morning, together, with the boys in tow, against our better judgment. We kept telling ourselves we were overreacting, sleep-deprived, worn thin by fear. But the moment I stepped through the front door, I knew something had changed. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of something burned. Not wood, not fabric. Something worse. Debbie clutched my arm and whispered, "Do you hear that?" We paused. Beneath the silence was a sound like breathing, slow, measured, coming from upstairs. We put the kids in the car. I handed Debbie the keys and told her not to shut off the engine. I went inside alone, flashlight in one hand, hammer in the other. The boys' room looked untouched, but the bunk bed was whole again, somehow. I had dismantled the top half 2 days ago. Moved it to the garage. Now, it stood fully assembled in the center of the room. No sheets, no pillows, just the frame, pristine and still. The walls around it were covered in soot. I stepped closer. Carved into the wall above the headboard were 6 words, scratched deep with something sharp. "Get in, stay still, don't scream." My blood turned to ice. I swung the hammer. First at the headboard, splinters flew, then the rails, the slats, the posts. I struck until my arms burned, until sweat ran into my eyes, until the entire thing was a broken, splintered mess across the floor. Then I poured gasoline over it, lit a match. The fire roared for a moment, then died. Just like that. No smoke, no burn marks, just wet gasoline pooled around the untouched pile of wood. I stood there shaking, holding the empty gas can, wondering what I was dealing with. That night we stayed at a hotel. Timmy screamed in his sleep. Lucas wet the sheets. Debbie stared at the ceiling like she was waiting for the roof to collapse. And me, I dreamed of fire. I was in the house, alone. The walls were warped and black, the ceiling peeled like skin. In the boys' room, the bed was whole, glowing with heat but not burning. And someone was tied to it, not a child. Me. I was lashed at the wrists and ankles, staring up at the ceiling as it opened wide like a mouth. Something leaned down, tall, skinless, eyeless. It whispered, "You brought it into the house. You let it feed." I woke up choking. Debbie said I had been thrashing violently. The next morning we agreed we wouldn't go back. But the house didn't care. Our phone rang at 3 a.m. from the hotel. When I picked it up, the line was dead, until a soft voice on the other end whispered, "Your bed is waiting." I called a friend with a truck and made one last trip to the house. I didn't even go inside. I opened the garage, dragged the broken pieces of the bed into a tarp, wrapped it tight with chain, and loaded it into the bed of the truck. We drove to the landfill outside of town, past the old quarry, through the fog. No one was working. I dumped the tarp at the edge of a ravine, pushed it over the side, and watched it tumble into the mist. I thought I'd feel relief. But as we turned back toward the road, I saw a figure at the tree line. Not a man, not a child. Something tall, bent, watching. I didn't say anything. Neither did my friend. We never spoke of it again. We left Wisconsin 3 days later. Packed what we could fit in a rental truck, handed the house keys to a realtor we barely knew, and drove west with nothing but road behind us and silence ahead. I didn't even tell my boss. I left my job, our church, our friends, all of it behind. Because once you see behind the veil, you can't unsee it. You either run or you get swallowed. But even as the miles passed, I never really left that house. Neither did it. The first sign came 2 nights after we settled into the apartment across state lines. A clean place, new floors, new paint, no history. And yet, when I opened the closet in the boys' room to hang their clothes, the back wall was marked with 3 deep scratches. Timmy started crying again in his sleep. Lucas stopped speaking. Debbie couldn't keep food down. I called a priest in the area, explained what had happened, at least what I thought I could explain without sounding insane. He listened. Really listened. Then he said something that chilled me more than the haunting itself. You moved the pieces, but you never severed the tie. You buried the bones, but not the spirit. I asked him what that meant. He just said the objects carried trauma, some more than others. That night I went to the truck and opened the storage box. The tarp was gone. I know I left it there. I wrapped it in chain. I threw it in myself. But somehow it followed. Or maybe it never left. From that point on, I knew it wasn't the bed itself. The bed was a vessel, just the latest in a long line of doorways. Something older was using it, feeding through it, waiting in it. It didn't matter where we ran. We'd brought it with us. Then came the worst night. I woke to the smell of smoke, sweet, almost like incense. I rushed to the boys' room, heart pounding, expecting fire. But what I found was worse. Lucas was standing in the center of the room, eyes wide, staring at the wall. On the wall was a new message. One more night. Timmy was sitting on the bed, shaking, pointing at the closet. I opened the door. Nothing. But I could feel it. Watching. Debbie was done. She packed the kids' stuffed bags into the car and said, "We're not staying here another night. I don't care if we sleep in a field." And we didn't. We left. We drove until sunrise, then we drove some more. Checked into a roadside motel somewhere near the Iowa border. A place with thin walls and buzzing neon and a broken vending machine in the lobby. But for the first time in weeks, we slept. No voices, no dreams, no marks. We kept moving, a new town. A new apartment, no used furniture, no basements. Eventually, the boys smiled again. Debbie stopped flinching at every creak. I stopped checking closets with a hammer in my hand. Life resumed. Not like before, but close enough. But every now and then I hear something. Not loud, not threatening, just familiar. A soft creak from the hallway, a whisper when the house settles, a breath behind the wall. I pretend I don't hear it. Because if I do, if I let it in, I'm afraid it'll find a new place to sleep. And this time there won't be a priest, or a prayer, or a tarp strong enough to hold it. So I leave the light on in the boys' room, just in case. The Tallman family never returned to that house. They destroyed the bed, but not the thing that came with it. And if you're ever tempted to bring secondhand furniture into your home, ask yourself what might still be attached. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. FEI, you enjoy our stories. Until next time, sleep tight.